Hey everyone! I hope you are well, or as well as you possibly can be, because we are in the shadow period of Mercury Retrograde, which is what we're going to talk about today. I just realized what I'm wearing. I feel like I am her today. Thank you for joining. Hello, hello. So if you aren't already feeling Mercury Retrograde, it hasn't happened yet. It happens May 2nd. But we are, May 2nd, Jesus Christ, May 10th through June 2nd. But we are in such a tangible shadow period of it that I want to talk a little bit about what we may be feeling right now, what we're going to be feeling during Mercury Retrograde. Hi, thank you for joining. And ultimately how to work with it in accordance to your rising sign. So stay tuned for all of that. But ultimately, overall, I hope you guys are well. Let me know how you are feeling. Let me know if you are feeling chaotic. I think we were in a really chaotic place. We seem to be coming to some sort of landing, but that is just, we're still in eclipse season. We have a lunar eclipse coming up, Mercury Retrograde coming up. So I would coast with whatever form of peace you have your grip around right now. But this isn't I'm never someone to like I said, fearmonger with astrology. I think that everything is always happening for us, but it's worth noting when we're in times that are calling for more emotional and energetic, tumultuous vibes, as opposed to when things are more settled and grounded. So just know that if you are feeling a lot right now, you're not alone in that. And I think the main reason why I want to touch on it is not only because of the eclipse season that we are basically smack in the middle of it. We had the solar eclipse, was that last week? 2 weeks ago? Time isn't real. But we had that solar eclipse in Taurus. We're having a lunar eclipse in Scorpio coming up literally in a week, I believe. A week and a half. But Mercury Retrograde is something that I really want to focus on today, because it's one of the most retrogrades of all Mercury retrogrades. And the reason why is because it's in the sign of Gemini. So Gemini is a sign that is ruled by the planet of Mercury. So it's almost as if it's a typical Mercury retrograde, but on steroids. And so what that means, and especially because it's in eclipse season, which eclipses essentially kind of are retrogrades in themselves on steroids. So it's a lot. But what I will say is expect the normal things when it comes to Mercury retrogrades, right? So that means things being delayed, electronics failing you, which let me know if that's happened for you. I've had so many miscommunications, electronics failing, emails that were meant to be sent that weren't sent, those typical annoyances that are very easy to navigate, but ultimately just sort of a weird mosquito buzzing in your ear. Those are going to happen. Those are expected. That's giving Mercury retrograde, and it's giving especially Mercury retrograde right now because of the fact that it's in the sign of Gemini. It's also worth noting that Mercury is a planet that rules communication. So even I think you can see in how I'm hesitating to form one coherent thought, say one coherent sentence. I think communication is not going to be as fluid as usual. So the first piece of advice that I would give you when it comes to navigating this Mercury retrograde is to really be intentional with your form of communication when it comes to how you are connecting and just communicating with others right now. That means watching your words, in the most simplest form of it, watching what you are saying. I think right now we are really kind of being shown to ourselves the ways that we talk about ourselves, the ways that we talk about our circumstances, and how language in its most nuanced and its smallest ways can really build our reality. So I really want you to pay careful attention to the words that you are using, and when you notice that you are using words that don't feel right, that aren't creating a reality that feels comfortable, really in that exact breath fix it and shift it so that you can slowly train your mind to speak more beautiful things about yourself, into your life, about your circumstances, and really, shift your perspective. I was watching this feel good video, which if you don't know who Phil Good is, he's quite the character in the spiritual community, quite the character. And he had a video titled How I Became My Higher Self. And I was watching it because I was like, how did you become your higher self, Phil? And it was really interesting. I would invite anyone to sit with it and watch it. But he was talking about how we're disconnected with our higher self when we're looking at life through the lens of judgment. And so for instance, if you go on a date and you come back from that date and you talk to your roommate about it and you're like, oh, that was a bad date, or that's definitely not my person. Hi, my angel. Thank you for joining. When you immediately talk about that date through the lens of judgment, rather than understanding that life is all about moving forward. And so when you have an experience, that experience is what it is. You come home and you say, that was a date that I had. And now it's Tuesday and now I'm doing the dishes, right? So that's a bit of an extreme in terms of how to practice that. But ultimately what I think is beautiful about like that teaching is how our life and our experience is colored by our chosen perspective and the words that we use to build that chosen perspective. So like I said, use this Mercury retrograde to be slower with your words, more intentional with your words, and really look at what you are saying, how you're talking about yourself, how you describe yourself, and also how you communicate your feelings and your boundaries right now, right? So if you are having any sort of disagreement, or if you're really asking for something, asking for a boundary to be implemented from someone else for someone else, really making sure that you're coming from a loving space and a patient space, because Mercury retrograde, miscommunications, impulsivity, there's a lot of energy that is not really supportive of like fluid communication and understanding. So I would invite you to exert a bit more effort when it comes to feeling seen, feeling heard, and using your words as a form of as a tool, honestly, using your words as a tool not only to build your life, but also to effectively communicate while still being rooted in love. So avoiding arguments by just communicating what you need to communicate from the lens of, it's not how this is received, this is how it's given. I don't need an apology, I just need acknowledgement because I said it and it was heard. That kind of thing. If that makes sense with your situations, then it makes sense with your situations, and if not, whatever. Anyway, what I think is the most important about this Mercury retrograde, so right, like I said, the normal things, annoyances when it comes to delays, miscommunications, watch your words. The biggest lesson that I'm learning in my life right now, and that I think this retrograde is really, really, really wanting to drill into us, and I would really invite you to like sit with this, is how can I make my life less busy? How can I simplify my life to its most to its most simple? Like, there isn't any word to say it. So more about me. I just came back from a vacation in Costa Rica where I was doing nothing. I was eating good foods. I was riding my bike. I was living life as leisurely as possible. It was incredible. I came back home to so much work, to so many things, to so many tasks. And I did a reading with someone, and they were talking about how they were watching a lot of people in their life sort of like chase these accomplishments in their career, and how they had reached a place where they were like, I'm just allergic to being busy. Like, I don't think that having too much to do or having a lot to do is something to be proud of. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I think that that is exactly how we should be led in terms of planning our lives during this Mercury retrograde. How can you be as minimally busy as possible? The reason why is because this retrograde is ruled, of course, literally, I was not built for tasks. I was not built for to-do lists. I was built for slowness. I was built for maybe 3 goals a day, simple ones that I check off, and then I move back to like living very, very leisurely, very slowly, consuming and indulging in presence rather than like chasing and doing and completing. The hamster wheel right now is going to feel as loud as possible. And here's the fucking tea. We really want to get into it. The United States is in its Pluto retrograde, and I think we're watching a lot of systems get dismantled from the inside out. I think I don't even have to get into it. I think we're witnessing it. And I think when it comes to the things that are the antiquated systematic ways of being and working, getting overridden, I think that whole being led by productivity and doing too much to the point where you have nothing of yourself to give back to yourself is getting fucking dismantled, and it needs to start from us. We kind of need to exemplify it. And so I would really invite you to use this retrograde as the first step towards simplifying your life and being less busy, especially because Mercury retrograde right now, like I said, is in the sign of Gemini. So we're going to be really overstimulated anyway. So this means that like, if you feel really addicted to social media right now, it's going to feel louder than usual. If you are someone who's constantly overthinking, or you're really overstimulated by your own thoughts, they're going to be louder than usual. And so if you can find a way to have less distraction, to be as present as possible, and to not have as much to think about, not have as many decisions to make, not have as many things around you to like call your attention to, and like just kind of like bring your base back to like as much stillness as you possibly can, that would be the best way to navigate this Mercury retrograde, especially because Mercury retrogrades don't just happen to like pause our lives and then like there's no reason for it, right? We learn a lot with Mercury retrogrades. They're always about reviewing, revisiting, redefining, renegotiating, right? And so at the end of this, I'll go through like what you're kind of being called to revisit relative to your rising sign. But overall, it's important to note that like those downloads, those knowings, those like, oh shit, like I finally get it, or maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing, or maybe that's a person I need to talk to. Like those small knowings will not be heard if you are too distracted and too enslaved to your schedule, to your routine, to your to-do list, right? So like what I would invite you to do inclination to simplify. Yes, what a gorgeous way to word that. So what I would invite you to do, right, because we are going to be in a creative space as well, really respond to things that invite you, right? So like, if you have an idea on something that you want to do or that you want to execute, you're being invited to it energetically, respond to that. But if you're like, okay, well, I should do this thing, or someone asked me to do this thing, I'm like, okay, I should, because I need the money, or I need that. Like, when you're just piling up tasks to have tasks, you're going to like literally just suffocate under it. And that is something that can be applied to life overall in general, but especially during this Mercury retrograde. So know that you're going to hear more clearly, you're going to have more discernment, you're going to learn more things when you are in a more simplified state of being. Minimize the tasks that you have on your to-do list. Even if you have a lot of shit to get done, say I'm getting 3 things done a day. And if by Friday I didn't get everything done, Monday will continue, because Saturday and Sunday are for me, right? Like, have strong boundaries with yourself, have strong boundaries with the people that are asking of you to give yourself to them, and just know that like simplifying life, being as minimally busy as possible is the most beautiful way to navigate this. And if you find yourself overstimulated by life, what I will say right now is to find your breath. So if you don't have any sort of like breathwork practice, implement that. But if not, just like if you're in a moment of like, I got a lot of shit to do and I'm really busy and I'm really overwhelmed, finding your footing, really bringing your awareness to like what the soles of your feet feel like in contact with the ground beneath you, and just breathing and just connecting with your breath, even as for 30 seconds, it'll be so helpful for resetting your energetic aura and like getting back into a state of clarity when it comes to responding to what you have to do rather than drowning under what you have to do. So find your breath, simplify your life, be really intentional with your words right now. It's the time to slow down, to reevaluate. A lot of chapters typically close with Mercury retrograde, so don't be fooled by old lovers that tend to resurface during this time. That's another thing. When it comes to romance right now, to my girlies who are looking for partnership, I'm not saying this isn't the time. Of course, your life is yours, and whatever's happening, allow it to unfold organically. But what I will say is that with not only Mercury being in the sign of Gemini, which is always like, I like that, but I also like that. But wait, that's nice, but that doesn't have what that has. Like that energy added to that Venus being in Aries, which is very impulsive, very like, I want what feels good right now. And when it doesn't feel good, I'm going to get the next thing. And I believe Jupiter is either already in Aries or about to move into Aries. Now is a time for fun, for romance, for flirtation. Now is not the time for commitment, for, being fooled by these like exes who are resurfacing as disguises of like the second round of love, when really it's like, have you really let go of the limiting belief that's tied to this relationship, or the fear that this person exemplifies in you? You know what I mean? So just navigate with discernment, navigate with caution. If you are the ex that is trying to weasel your way back into your ex's life, reevaluate. Really be sure that you are making your decisions from a centered and core space of like, no, I have clarity about this, as opposed to, this feels good right now because my body says it feels good right now because I want it right now, so I'm going to do this right now, right? Because like that's the vibes right now. Slow down with your decisions, slow down with your words, slow down with your routine, just slow down. Slow down. So beautiful. So I will kind of do a recap of that at the end, but right now I want to go into where exactly is this retrograde transiting for you relative to your rising sign, so you kind of know, because that was kind of like the overall consensus, but relative to where it is showing up in your personal chart will show you where are you being invited to reevaluate, perhaps restructure, relative to your rising sign. So starting with literally Gemini risings, this will obviously be in your first house. So you're being invited to reevaluate your identity, who you are to the world, how you show up in the world, if you're showing up in an authentic way. Really sit down and pause. Like I said, Mercury retrogrades, but also like eclipse seasons are not times of action. And it's worth noting that all of the learning and all the growth and all the things that we have sort of called into our lives from our routines of self-care are meant to be integrated in stillness, right? There isn't too much to do right now. We're really being invited to sit, to observe, to witness, and to allow the integration come through the act of being. So like, just be right now, and know that like the work will get done as you witness and allow and respond to, rather than like do and force. So when it comes to Gemini risings, if you've done a lot of work on yourself in terms of like living in your truth, speaking your truth, making sure that who you are physically, who you are energetically to others is authentic, know that like right now is kind of a time for integration, and that means shedding what doesn't align with your authenticity organically, right? Like I've said so many times, snakes don't like rip off their skin. They allow them to like organically sort of smooth their way off. So just like allow whatever is smoothing its way off to smooth its way off. If you are a Cancer rising, this is in your 12th house. So I just did a reading for someone who has Gemini in their 12th house. I would really, A, pay attention to how crazy your dreams are right now, but B, know that your guides are going to be really communicative to you through whether that's, you know, synchronized numbers, whether it's through like random synchronicities, like card pulls. Just understand that like right now you're being communicated with in a really loud way from the divine, and you will miss messages if you are too distracted. So minimize your life, minimize your tasks, minimize your distractions as much as possible, and really just listen, tap into your subconscious, trust yourself, making sure that you are building a routine that's slow and intentional when it comes to your spiritual upkeep. And yeah. If you are a Leo rising, then this will be in your 11th house. So you really want to reevaluate your relationship with social media, the digital age, online presence, but ultimately your friend groups. Are your friend groups reflective of the way that you've grown, the way that you've evolved? Are they a safe space for you to be your full self? Do you feel good in your friend groups? This could also probably be a time where if you have any unresolved issues with former friends, it could be a beautiful time to reconcile or perhaps really put a dead end to them. And you could also meet new people that you will consider friends eventually during this time period. So that's fun. If you're a Virgo rising, this is in your 10th house. If you have any daddy issues, also career. So 10th house rules the divine masculine, our father, also our career, our platform, how we stand and experience our purpose. So you may have some reevaluation, an invitation to reevaluate your career, how you stand in your career, what you create and do in this world, but ultimately like your divine masculine. Are you taking good care of yourself from a divine masculine perspective, right? So are you holding yourself accountable? Are you taking care of your responsibilities in a way that's responsible? And really reevaluating your relationship with responsibility, with how you trust not only men, but just like any like male identifying masculine energy in your life. That kind of vibe. If you're a Libra rising, A, you're really pretty. I say it every single time. B, this will be in your 9th house. So education, if you are studying or if you're considering studying, now's the time to really sit and look at that. Ultimately though, it's what's your relationship with God and how can you reevaluate, redefine that for yourself in a way that's authentic, in a way that isn't forced, right? Especially if you've ever been introduced to a form of organized religion that doesn't sit right or rest well with your spirit. How can you redefine and sort of construct a relationship to divinity that is both devotional but also authentic to your true authentic belief? I just said authentic so many times, but you know what I mean. If you are a Scorpio rising, wow. Is that right? Oh yeah, okay, of course it's right, yeah, because it's polar opposite. Okay, sorry, my brain was like, what? If you're a Scorpio rising, this will be in your 8th house. So that is the house literally ruled by Scorpio, which is really intense because 8th house rules the subconscious, it rules our shadow, it rules our fears. So you're really going to be invited to look at what am I scared of and how have I allowed my fear to play a larger role in my life when it comes to my decision makings, when it comes to the way that I speak about my life. If you are starting your sentences with your fears of like, well, I wouldn't do that thing because, or that isn't for me because, or I'm just so scared to, really reevaluating what your relationship is and how you've structured your dialogue around fear and how you can confront your fear, witness your fear, and understand that fear is not something to be eradicated. As long as we have a beating heart, we're always going to experience fear, but rather how can I build healthy response mechanisms to witness my fear and still make the brave choice. So that's fun. If you are Sagittarius rising, this is in your 7th house. Here we go again. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always a good time to witness fear and reconstruct, especially because every time we have a period of life where we're like kind of being invited to like heal in regards to fear, we do a wonderful job at it and we move through life and then we like are invited to do it again and we're like, wait, what? But it's like a whole new fear that we're confronting. So if you've done this kind of work before, shout out to you, but also it could be a new kind of fear that you're being invited to sit with. So just, and sometimes, like I said, there's not much to do right now. There's only emotions to witness, circumstances to look at and respond to. So just look at what you're feeling, look at what your thoughts are saying, and yeah, just respond to it. If you are Sagittarius rising like me, this is in your 7th house of relationships. So we really want to look at where, this is so accurate. So you really want to look at what kind of dynamics you invite into your life that are romantic, and how can you begin to shift any cycles that seem to no longer serve you, that are consistently moving through. In regards to the kind of partners that you invite in, the kind of dynamics within your partnerships you're inviting in, your sense of self-worth when it comes to who you are in relationships, but ultimately just reevaluating, like, what do I actually want in partnership? What is actually important to me? And how can I first and foremost be that, so that I can attract it vibrationally and energetically? So that's fun. I'm having a great time with that. If you're a Capricorn rising, it's in your 6th house. This is routine. This is health. Oh, this is health. If you are a Capricorn rising, this is the fucking time to be like, how am I not taking care of myself? And really be radically honest about it. When it comes to your social health, your spiritual health, your I forgot what I've already said. Your emotional health, your physical health, all the forms of health that we as sacred vessels experience, really making sure that like you are being so intentional when it comes to like your health upkeep, and being honest in the ways in which you are not doing yourself a service or treating yourself as sacred. So reevaluating your relationship with your own health, and also routine. If you are too tied to a routine to the point where you are too busy, simplifying that. And then if you have no form of routine to the point where your life just feels like a bodiless noodle, redefining that as well. If you're Aquarius rising, yes, alien, this is in your 5th house. This is so much fun. It's literally an invitation to just essentially breathe more creativity into your life. What is your relationship and your limiting beliefs surrounding creativity? And how can you just have fun? This is also the house of like inner child. So like, how can you invite in more fluidity into your life, more play into your life? What is your relationship with play? And yeah, what are any limiting beliefs surrounding play that you want to reevaluate? If you're a Pisces rising, you probably look like a fish in the most beautiful way possible. And this is in your 4th house. So this is the house of home, literally. So you want to look at, what is my relationship with home? Do I feel like I have solid ground underneath me when it comes to stability? When it comes to, it's the polar opposite house of the 10th house, right? So this is divine mother, maternal relationships, how you take care of yourself from a maternal standpoint. But ultimately just like, this also could be a time where you think about moving. Think about like actually physically moving your home or moving states, traveling to see like what kind of places feel good in your soul, for your soul. But rather, I think ultimately a beautiful way to work with the transit in the 4th house is like, am I a safe home for myself? Is my inner dialogue safe and comfortable? Is it a nurturing space? Do I feel good to come back to me? And yeah, and if you are considering moving at all, now is a beautiful time, not to do the action necessarily. I mean, I know a lot of people who are moving right now actually, so like, work with it if it's working with you, but like ultimately it's really to sit down and evaluate, what is my idea of home? And if my idea of home right now doesn't feel safe, how can I make it feel safe? And if that means a physical relocation, then inviting that into your life. I think we have 2 more. So if you're an Aries rising, this is in your 3rd house of communication, of writing, of really just like expression. The 3rd house is the house of Gemini. So having this retrograde pass through in the sign of Gemini is a beautiful time to really like look at your ideas right now, looking at what you want to say to the world, your chosen perspective of the world, right? Because this isn't just like what we see, but also like what we receive. So you want to look at like, what filter am I bringing in information through? Do I already have a bias? Do I already have sort of like a pessimistic outlook? And how can I sort of begin to shift the way that I experience information? How do I listen? But also, how do I communicate? Do I feel safe and strong enough to like speak my truth? And yeah, and if you have any ideas, any forms of writing, any like creative expressions that you want to give to the world, now would be a beautiful time to look at that. And if you feel invited to, right, I don't want you to just minimize your life to the point where you're not expressing yourself creatively, especially if you feel fertile in that sense, but really looking at, what does my body want to do right now, and responding to that, rather than like forcing productivity that doesn't land, forcing productivity that doesn't feel right, or that automatically drains you just at the thought of it. And lastly, if you were a Taurus rising, this is in your second house, which is the Taurus house, funny enough. So that's interesting. But it is the house that rules our relationship with money. So you really want to reevaluate, what is my relationship with like how I define money, how I feel deserving of money, and ultimately how I make money. Am I charging too much? Am I not charging enough? And also just like it rules our relationship with like physical things, the material world, right? Our earthly tasks, self-care, and also like our sense of self-worth. So if you are in a place where your sense of self-worth is conditional, you really want to reevaluate where you learned that, and how you can begin to build a new belief system. So that is what the retrograde is kind of inviting you to sit with and reevaluate in accordance to your rising sign. But like I said at the top of this, did you just hear my elbow crack? I can't. Overall, for the entire collective, be as minimally busy as possible. Simplify your life to the bare fucking bones. If you are able to move around your schedule to the point where like your morning routine can be just like a free hour of doing whatever the fuck you want, and then you begin to get into your like day-to-day stuff, do that. I came back from doing nothing to doing so much, and I feel dead inside. You're looking at a shell. And it's because I just had the privilege of having very little to do and being able to do that little stuff slowly. So coming back to having so many tasks and being so fast paced has been such a shock to the body. And so like today, after this, I'm going to sit down and be like, okay, how can I make sure that I do not touch my phone from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or like before 8 a.m. and then like after 6 p.m. How can I make sure that like if I have a ton of stuff to do, that I prioritize 3, that I give those 3 everything that I have, and then I peace out after that. Really just making sure that like you are doing what you need to do to make sure that you are as minimally stimulated as possible, that you have enough room to breathe, to be still, to notice, to observe, and to hear the downloads that we're getting right now. Reevaluate, be patient, and really watch your words. Watch the words that you say and speak over your life. Words are spells. And so it's, oh yes, the bed emoji. Sleep. I've been sleeping for like 8 hours and I'm like, not enough. I think I'm gonna start sleeping for 10 hours. And that's on period. I was a bear in a past life. I need to hibernate. So yes, also making sure that you're being really intentional with your words, that you're speaking beautiful things about your life, that you're being intentional with the chosen perspective that you filter information through, and how you choose to speak about the situations and the circumstances in your life are really important in terms of how you experience them. And I think what's most important also is like when you're communicating with others, Mercury retrogrades can oftentimes bring about miscommunication, especially with Venus and Aries right now, impulsivity, right? So we're responding from emotion and frustration rather than like a centered space of like observance and like centered response. So understanding that like if you can just be slow with your words, slow with your responses, slow with the ways that you implement these boundaries you're going to be invited to implement right now, that'll be much more effective. So I hope that made sense. I said a lot of things and it may not have been coherent because once again, we're in this shadow period and communication is not the easiest right now, but I hope that I made sense. I love you guys so much. I will be back to talk about the lunar eclipse that's happening, I believe, on the 16th. This eclipse season is no joke. This retrograde season is no joke. So just make sure that you are being patient with yourself, that you're giving yourself grace, rest, and I adore you all. See you next time. Also, I have a ton of new offerings and stuff, so check that out on my page if you feel called to. Okay, bye.